I was just looking at the chats. I saw people have logged in from different parts of Karnataka, people from Maharashtra, Gujarat, and I saw a few people even have logged in from Punjab. So nice to know the power of the internet, real time. So just revise very quickly. I'll just very quickly revise what we have done in the yesterday's class. Finally, once I finish the entire program, I'm going to summarize in 2 slides. I'm going to summarize in just 2 slides what we have done from the first session of yesterday till the second day, fourth session. So basically, I've divided the entire FDP into 4 parts. Yesterday we did 2 parts, and today we will be doing the remaining 2 parts. But I feel that today we will try to wind up things a little early so that we can take up questions and all that. So very quickly, I'll just revise what we had done in the yesterday's session. I started with explaining to you people a simple IoT architecture. I said this is the most important part. I told you people that the hardware in the building blocks of the IoT, you have 4 things, very, very important. And I'm going to finally come back to this slide, and I'm going to point at the things that are the building blocks of IoT, and I am going to show you how we were successful in implementing all these 4 building blocks of IoT. Okay, so these 4 blocks are extremely important. You have to understand the hardware, the communication part, the software backend, and then finally the application for the user interface. It's very, very important. And in the process, I'm going to even show you, okay, the implementation of all these parts. Yesterday, we have seen the implementation of the hardware. We saw, I told you, we used the microcontroller along with a few sensors. We connected them to the microcontroller, and then we proceeded. Okay, we did that. Communication is what I'm going to explain you today exactly how to do it. There's nothing much about communication. It's just a little configuration. That's it. I mean, you don't have to write any code for implementing the communication building block of the IoT. Okay. Software backend, of course. Software backend, of course. There is a little code that we need to write, and what technologies go into that part of the IoT. I will explain to you that today. And then finally, the application user interface, a very important part of IoT is the user interface. Finally, if the user is not able to control or view something remotely, then there is no point implementing it. So we will also see what is this, what type of code goes inside the application or the user interface. Okay, so I will come back to this slide. Once I finish the entire FDP, I'll come back to this slide and tell you that this is what we had implemented. Okay, then this is the simplest IoT architecture that we saw yesterday. Then these are the sensors, actuators, microcontrollers. Then I told you what is the meaning of an Arduino. Arduino is a prototyping board. Then I explained to you people what is the structure of an Arduino program. We understood some of the built-in functions of Arduino. Then we took an example of a blinking of an LED. We wrote a program yesterday, and then you were able to see that we uploaded the code to the Arduino, and then you could see that the LED was blinking. Then after that, we introduced you people to Node MCU. This is another microcontroller, but with Wi-Fi capabilities. Programming style remains the same. Programming language remains the same and everything. Then we did one case study. I demonstrated to you people yesterday how do we implement a sensor node using a Node MCU, a DHT11 sensor, and an LDR. And I told you this we have actually done it for one of our clients, and the client is our sister concern. They wanted a system to be developed, and then finally this is what we have ended up with. And surprisingly, let me tell you that after we have implemented, we have said that we have implemented this. We went and even deployed this in their labs. And the person there is saying that we need 2 more because another lab where he is associated with the requirements. So you never know. Some business thing comes up immediately after you've implemented something. There is a lot of requirements for things, I'll tell you. So I demonstrated this to you people yesterday, and today we will see exactly what all code we have written for implementing the sensor node. Okay, so we demonstrated that, and yeah, this is what I will be starting with today. Yesterday I showed you that small box in which we had the Node MCU, and then we had we had the Node MCU, which was the actual microcontroller, the brain of the IoT unit. Then we had the LDR, which is actually the sensor to detect how much light is there. And finally, we had the DHT11, which is a sensor which will determine the temperature and humidity. Okay, and basically this is the circuit diagram for that. I opened that box yesterday to just show it to you people that how easy it is. There's nothing much, but it looked very complicated in the box because there were a lot of wires. I had to fit everything into one small box, which was 4" by 4". So we had to put everything inside. We did not design any PCB for this. If you can design a PCB for this, then things become very easy. Things become very presentable. They all look good and all that. But then when since it had to be done at in a very short notice, so we had to use wires, and then you could see all the wires going from one place to another place and all that. So it was looking very congested in the box. Finally, this is a circuit diagram for that. We have a DHT11. I told you the DHT11 has got 3 pins. 2 pins, of course, to power up the DHT11. So one pin goes to +5 volt, the other pin goes to ground. And then there is an output pin of the DHT11 which goes into the node MCU, the microcontroller. So the DHT11 will be continuously determining what is the current temperature and humidity, and it will be giving it to the microcontroller. So we are going to write the code into the microcontroller to continuously keep reading what is the temperature and humidity. On the other hand, we have another sensor, which is the light sensor, which is connected to the A0 pin, and the second one goes into the +5 volt, and there is a small register required here for pull down. Okay, this is required for pull down. Okay, so let us not worry much about that electronic stuff of what is the meaning of a pull down register and all that. But we have only 2 sensors here. DHT11 goes into pin number D1, and LDR, which goes into A0. And then we have to power up this node MCU. We have to power up this node MCU. So that's why we need to provide it. We need to provide it +5 volts. So we have a battery here. We have a power supply of +5 volt. Take the positive, put it into the V-in pin of the node MCU, and the negative of the battery goes into the ground pin of the node MCU. So that is how you power up a node MCU. You can either power up through the pins like this, or you can will start a video if you are able to. Right, let us try to understand the logic of that code. Yeah, this is the code. This is the code that we've written very quickly. Don't worry much about the syntax here. Syntax, of course, remains the same. I've told you that it contains a void, it contains a setup function and a loop function, only 2 functions. Okay, I have opened this in a different text editor, that is Sublime. Normally, you know that this code is opened in Arduino IDE, and then there you will also have the highlighting of keywords and all that. But since I wanted to display this big and bold, so I've opened it in Sublime. So we have the setup function and the loop function, same programming style. What we do here is initially we need to include a few libraries. You know what does this hash include does? It includes a lot of libraries. And this code, we are going to write it on the node MCU. This is the code that we have actually written it on the node MCU. So we have included a few libraries. Then we have initialized the DHT. This is a special library that is used when you want to interface a DHT with the node MCU. And then, yeah, this is the most important part here. This is where you will understand the communication part of the IoT architecture. I said the first building block of IoT is the hardware. The second is the communication. For the communication, remember what style we are using is the device connecting to the gateway, and from the gateway it goes to the cloud. Okay, that is the architecture we are employing. So what we do here is, now try to understand that this is the most important part. The node MCU is a microcontroller which has got Wi-Fi capabilities. It has got Wi-Fi capabilities. Okay, and you can also connect your sensors and actuators to this controller. We are writing a code in the node MCU which will, the moment it is powered up, we are programming the node MCU to get connected to a hotspot. Finally, this unit of yours needs to be connected to the internet. Only then it will be able to send the details to the cloud server. If it is not connected to the internet, if it doesn't have the internet connectivity, how will it send data to the cloud server? So how do we connect a node MCU, the sensor node, to the internet? We write a code in such a way that the moment the node MCU is powered up, it searches for a hotspot or an access point. The name of that should be MMDC, and the password should be 12345678. Now, what I intend to do is I intend to start a hotspot in my mobile phone. Okay, you all know that our mobile phones has got the feature of sharing internet with people, so we can start a hotspot there. And I configure my hotspot. I say that please put the SSID as MMDC, and then I say that people, whoever is joining, should put a password 12345678. And that is what I'm putting it here into the code, because I want the node MCU to get connected to the hotspot. So these two lines here, actually I'm giving it the credentials to connect to my hotspot. Okay. And then after that, there is this line of code. Now, don't worry much about that line of code. Then in the setup function, the moment it is powered up, what happens here is I use the Wi-Fi of the node MCU and I begin it by putting the SSID, that is nothing but MMDC, and the password 12345678. I begin. Okay, I begin in the sense I tell the node MCU to connect to this SSID. And then while it is not connected, please start a while loop. While your Wi-Fi is not connected, while your Wi-Fi is not connected, go inside, cause a delay of 500 milliseconds, and then go back again. So this while loop from here to here will continue to execute forever till the node MCU is not connected to the SSID by supplying the password. So obviously, please remember that whenever you want your unit to get connected to the hotspot, you have to first make sure that it is within the range of that Wi-Fi. Okay, so you can either start that Wi-Fi in your mobile phone, or you can use your college's access point or anything like that, but provide the node MCU proper credentials so that it should get connected. This small 3 lines of code here will make sure that it gets connected to the Wi-Fi, and then we proceed. So in the setup function, only that much, nothing much here in the setup function, provided the credentials to get connected to the access point, and then once it is connected, go further and start executing the loop function. Let us see what is there in the loop function. The loop function is from here to here. What do we do here is, from the logic of the program, the sensor node, what it is doing, it is determining what is the current temperature and humidity, and it is putting that information into the cloud. Okay, it is putting that information into the cloud. The sensor node is basically doing that. And you all know, yesterday I told you people that it is putting temperature, humidity, and the light intensity into the cloud server after every 5 seconds. Okay, so after every 5 seconds, the sensor node, the node MCU along with the sensors, is determining the current temperature, humidity, and light, and it is putting it into the cloud server. Let us see what code we have written for that. First of all, we have declared something called as an HTTP object here. HTTP is an object of HTTP client. And then we are declaring some strings here, THL. Of course, this is for the temperature, humidity, and the light. And then there is something called as a node. A node is nothing but the node ID of that node. Okay. And then, yeah, here, determine temperature, humidity, and light. Now, how to determine the temperature and humidity in node MCU? Okay, I told you that we are using a DHT. We are using a DHT library for that. So it is very simple. It is only 1 line of code. We simply write dht.read11 D1. Where have we connected our the output of the DHT11? We have connected it to the pin number D1. So it reads D1 pin and then puts it into check. And then DHT.temperature will give you how much temperature is there currently. DHT.humidity will give you what is the current humidity. And then finally, you all know that we have connected the LDR2 pin number A0. So we do simply analog read A0 and we put it into L. At the end of this 4 lines of code, you know that my three variables, T will contain the temperature, H will contain the humidity, and L will contain the light intensity. Now don't worry much. Now, whoever knows RDNO here, they may be thinking that analog read will give you the analog value. It is not light intensity. Okay, so don't worry much about that. There was a formula, big formula here to convert that analog values into the light intensity. I did not put it just to make it a little simple. Okay, so finally at the end of this 4 lines of code, you know that I have 3 variables T, H, and L, which contains temperature, humidity, and the light intensity. Then after that, most important part again, try to understand this. All IoT architectures, all IoT code works on the same principle. Whether you want to control something or you want to record something, the principle of operation, the logic will remain the same. So try to understand this. This is a little.
भी कर लूंगा 11:30 तो वैसे बजने वाली है अभी.
A little tricky. There, you may or may not understand a few parts here, but it is okay. Let us go ahead. What we do is, now that we have temperature, humidity, and light intensity, okay, I need to send these three variables to the cloud server. I have to send these 3 things to the cloud server. In the cloud server, what I need in the cloud server is I need 2 things in the cloud server. First, I need a database to store these values. Okay, I will require a database table. In the table, I need to have so many columns. I should have a column for the temperature. I need to have one more column for the humidity, another for the light intensity, and then another for the node ID, then one more for the timestamp as to these values were taken at what time and what date. So I need a table. Okay. Since we are all from computer science background, more or less, we know what is a database. So on the cloud server, we need a database in which we need a table. Into that table, we are going to dump these values. On the cloud server, I need 2 things. First is the database to record my values, to store my values, to save my values. And the second thing that I require on the cloud server is a PHP file. I need a PHP file. The PHP file, why I need a PHP file is because now somebody has to be there on the cloud server to take these values and put it into the database server. Node MCU is not capable of putting the values directly into the database. Please remember, Node MCU is not at all capable of putting the values, though it has the values into 3 variables, T, H, and L, but it is not capable of putting the values directly into the database. So it has to take off some server-side script, and PHP will play that role. We have written a file called as save.php on the cloud server. Okay, on the cloud server, we have written a file called as save.php. And in this save.php, I'm going to share with you people. This save.php file also with all of you. Okay, I'm going to share with you the file. I'm going to explain to you that file. I'm going to open that file, PHP file, what code we have written in that PHP file. I'm going to explain it to you people. Okay, and then we will see how exactly PHP is able to receive the values from Node MCU and put it into the database. But what is the responsibility of the Node MCU here? The responsibility of the Node MCU is to determine temperature, humidity, light intensity, and request a PHP file by attaching these variables to the PHP file. We attach these values, temperature, humidity, light intensity, and the node ID, attach it to the PHP file, and the PHP file is written on the cloud server. The PHP will receive these values, make connection to the database, and store these values into the database. Now, at this point of time, let me make it clear that these 2 things which we keep on the server, the database and the PHP file, is actually the software backend block of our IoT architecture. Let me remind you people, we started with understanding the building blocks of IoT. Hardware was one block, communication was another block, third block is a software backend, and the last one is the application or the user interface. So third block, the software backend part is this part, the database and the PHP file that you people are going to write on the server. Okay, I will explain to you the PHP part also. But right now, see what we are writing in Node MCU. In the Node MCU, we determine temperature, humidity, and light intensity. Then we request a PHP file called as save.php, and we are going to attach get data. Get data is nothing but temperature, humidity, and all that. We are going to attach the 4 variables, including the node ID. We are going to attach it to the link, and we are going to request this PHP. We are going to request this PHP. We're going to request this PHP. Okay, so then after that, how do we request it? We simply write http.begin, we put the link here, and then after that, whatever the server sends back, whatever the PHP sends back from there, you can receive it here into a variable called as payload. We request the PHP by sending 3-4 variables, and then what we get back from PHP, we put it into a variable called as payload. Whatever PHP sends from there comes into payload. Just understand that. And then we end the request, and then we cause a delay of 5 seconds. We cause a delay of 5 seconds, and then you all know. After it sleeps here for 5 seconds, then again it goes back here, determines the temperature, humidity, and light intensity. Again, it will request that URL. Again, it will close the connection, cause a delay of 5 seconds. Again, it will go back here. So this loop will continue to happen as long as the Node MCU is powered up. As long as the Node MCU is powered up, remember that this code will execute continuously with a delay of 5 seconds. Now, let us say you say 5 seconds is too very frequent. You want to increase the time. You want to take the readings of temperature, humidity, and light after every 15 minutes. So you have to put appropriate delay over there. Okay, so you can put that delay over there of 15 minutes here. Okay, but you have to convert that into milliseconds and put it over there. So now what will happen is it will take the readings after every 15 minutes and it will put it into the cloud. So this is where you have to do the changes. Put the delay here, put the delay there, and then this will continuously. After we have uploaded this code, into the Node MCU, when we power it, it will try to search for the SSID MMTC. Once it finds that SSID, it will put the password and then it will get connected. The Node MCU has got internet connectivity now. Once it has got internet connectivity, then it will determine the temperature, humidity, and then it will keep sending it to the cloud server. Okay, I hope this is clear. I'll come back to this again. There is one more example that we are going to solve of how to control an LED. We are going to write, I told you yesterday that we will be controlling an LED. So I will be explaining this same type of a code again for that also. I will come back to that. But for now, I think this is okay. Now let us go further. Let us go further and try to understand the PHP code. I'll close this code now. So you all understood? So you all understood the Node MCU, the connections, okay? And I told you that the Node MCU is going to get connected to a hotspot of my mobile phone, and from there is what we get internet connectivity, and then it will determine the temperature and humidity, the light intensity, and it will be sending it to the cloud server. And then we saw the code that we have written into the Node MCU. Let us go further. Software backend. This is what I was talking about. The software backend of your IoT is MySQL, of course, on the cloud server, and then the PHP. Database to store temperature, humidity, and light with timestamp. What will PHP do? PHP will receive the details from the sensor node and store it into the database. Okay, so these two actually form your software backend. MySQL to store the data, PHP to receive the data from the sensor node and put it into the database. Now you'll ask me one question at this time. What cloud are we talking about? Is this cloud available for free? If not, where do we take it from? How do we get access to this cloud? For all those, let me tell you that right now, at this point of time, that this cloud is my own space that I have purchased. Okay, so there are so many vendors available on the internet. You can search for them. They will provide you a web space. You can even do this on AWS, Amazon's web services. You can buy some space there for for hosting your websites and all that. They give you space on the server, so you can buy such space. And then when you buy that space, you will have to tell them that you require something like 500 MB of space on the cloud. It depends upon how much size you require, but there will be a subscription charges every year. They will charge you something like 2,000, 2,500 rupees, or even there are a few which even charges you something like even 500 rupees also. So I have purchased a little space on the cloud. But when I purchased this, these people told me, boss, see, we will provide you 500 MB of space. There you can create your own database. There is MySQL database there. They said that I can put my PHP files into the server. They said that you can even run your PHP there. So basically, it's a web server there on the cloud. And they gave me all the credentials. They gave me a user ID and they gave me a password. Okay, and then they explained to me exactly how do I create a database there, how do I upload my PHP files there, all that. So let me just show you very quickly how do I access my cloud server. So I have to open my browser for that, and then yeah, this is the control panel which these people have given it to me. Okay, when you purchase space from the cloud, they will give you a control panel. They will give you a user ID and password, and then you have to simply log into your control panel. Once you have logged into your control panel, then you get access to create database tables on the cloud. Okay, there is something called as PHP My Admin here. If I click on that, you will be able to see that it displays you your database. Okay, now this let's take a little time. Okay, so it displays you your database. You can see if I click on that, this is the database, and these are all my tables in my database. There are so many tables in my database. You can see there are so many tables. Okay, and similarly, you can see that there is one table here called as TVL sensor data. If I click on that, TVL sensor data, you can see here. Yeah, there it is. So you can see this is my table, and yesterday we have started the sensor node, and it kept recording the temperature and humidity. So 26 for the temperature, and the 80 was the humidity, and 79 timestamp also is yesterday's here, and the node ID comes here. So this is the table in which my data is coming and getting stored. Okay, this is the table. So see how easy it is. If I want to create a new table, simply I have to click on this new here, provide the structure of the table, like how many columns you need, what is the data type of that, okay, and so on. So this is the database table. You saw how easy it is. Now, if I want to upload my PHP file, then in the control panel here, there is File Manager. If I click on that, it will show me all the files that are there on my cloud server. There is something called as public HTML. So when I click on that, so many things are there. And there is a folder here called as AH. Okay, there's a folder called as AH. So when I click on that, AH basically actually means animal house and all that. Okay? So we created a small folder, and this is where I have to upload my PHP file. And there's a PHP file here called as save.php. I will open this file and I'll show it to you. And if I want to upload a file here into this particular folder, I simply have to click on this button over here, and then I can upload my PHP file into this folder. Okay. So what I told you just now in the last 3-4 minutes is the concept of buying space on the cloud, and how you can create your tables on the cloud, how you can upload your PHP files to your space, and so on. Okay. Same thing I'm going to repeat again for the next example also. So if it has not made any sense right now, it is still okay. We will proceed. Okay. So MySQL is the database in which we store the data. PHP is the server-side script which will receive data from the sensor node and make connection to the database, and then it will put it into the database. Okay, so I'll just show you the PHP code now. PHP code, I click on that. Let's say okay, yeah, this is the PHP code. Okay, this is the PHP code. As simple as. And this PHP code I have already put it into the cloud server. You can see the name of the file is save.php. Save.php is the name of my PHP file. And what we are doing in this PHP file, I told you the sensor node is going to send 4 things. Of course, 3 things, and then along with that, the node ID will also come. So the sensor node is going to send you the temperature, humidity, light intensity, and the node ID. So I retrieve temperature by doing this $_get T, all that, and then I retrieve humidity, light intensity, and node ID. And then these 2 lines of code here, will make connection to the database by putting the IP address of the server, what is the user ID, what is the password, and what is the database name, and what is the database name here. Okay, it is actually going to give you connection to the database. It will make connection to the database. Once it has made connection to the database, now you are free. You can now execute your query. And what is that you want to execute in PHP? You are doing an insert query. So you have to insert into TVL sensor data values, insert node ID, temperature, humidity, light intensity, and then the date and the time. Okay, and finally then you execute the query, then print. Whatever you print from PHP, remember it will come back to the client. Now who is the client? The node MCU who's requesting the URL is the client. So whatever you print from PHP goes back to the client. Now in our case, the client is the node MCU. So whatever you print from here, data entered successfully, these 3 words, data entered successfully, will come back to node MCU. And where was this node MCU? It was here. This is what I was showing you, no? Yeah, there it is. So payload will contain the response that the PHP has sent you back. What is the response that the PHP is sending you back? The response is data entered successfully, which will come back into payload. But anyhow, I'm not going to use this. But in my other example, I will be using this payload. I will show you how to use this payload. Okay. So right now, in my node MCU, the code that I have written is to determine from the sensors temperature, humidity, light intensity. Then I make connection to the cloud server, and I request a URL by attaching to it temperature, humidity, light intensity, and node ID. And then I request this URL, and then whatever the PHP is sending me back comes back into payload. Anyhow, I'm not going to make use of that. I end the connection, then I pause a delay of 5 seconds, then I going to go back and I keep repeating this forever as long as it is switched on. So PHP also, more or less, we have understood these 4 lines on the top here is for extracting the content. Then remaining the next 2 lines for making connection to the database. Then the remaining lines here to execute the queries, and then closing the connection to the database. I have already uploaded this to the cloud server. And that is the reason why you were able to see all that. Okay, you were able to see all that on the cloud server. So for example, if I go there, if I type my space, okay, this is what was displayed to me. Okay, my data is going there, and then it is getting saved into the database. My data is now saved in the database, and then I need this. I need an interface to show it to the user. I cannot tell the user to go to the database and go and check the temperature and humidity there. I have to provide a user interface for the doctors there in the lab. When they asked me finally where we will be able to see this data that is getting recorded, I said, boss, don't worry, I'm going to make you a user application. It's going to be a web page where we will display to you the values that were recorded by the sensor node. So now then what we did was, data was already there in the database. The node MCU was sending the data, PHP was storing it into the database. But finally we have to display this to the user. Finally, we had to develop one application for the user to see all these values. So we developed this part of the program using HTML and PHP. So we used HTML technology and we used PHP, and we displayed this information to the user. And they were happy. They said, okay, fine, this is good. But we want one more option in this. They said that if I want to see exactly what was the temperature on a particular day, then how do I do it? Then we say, okay, fine, no problem. We will provide you this option here. We will provide you this option here where you can select the date on which you want the values to be displayed, and then you click on show data, and it will show you the data of that particular date only. So when I click on these two, you can see that, yeah, of course, I mean, what I had selected here was 25th of June and yet 23rd. So there is nothing in between that. So if I select here, let us say 22nd and 25th today, then it will display me some data, because yesterday we had taken some readings. So it displays you some readings over there. So finally, we had to develop one application for the user, and that application is the last block of an IoT architecture. IoT is made up of 4 building blocks: hardware, communication, server, software backend, and the application. The application, the last block of the IoT architecture, is this interface here. Once the data enters into the database, if I want to show it to the user on in a simple manner so that they can understand it in a much better way, I have to provide them an application. Now that application can either be a web page, or it can be an Android application. You can also develop one Android application, and instead of them opening a browser and typing the URL, they can open an Android application and they can actually see it in a much better way. You can display this in the form of a graph also in Android. Okay, you can see this in the form of a graph. You want to draw some conclusions based on the data, you can even do that. And finally, one very important point here is that once the data is getting accumulated, a lot of data gets accumulated. So many sensors dump a lot of data into the database. The data becomes very, very big. And then this data is not useless. This data is useful. People can make use of this data to draw some conclusions, to take some decisions. And for that, they can employ things like machine learning or big data. Okay, since the data is going to boom up a lot, okay, it is going to be a huge data in terms of terabytes, maybe even. Okay, so once the data is getting accumulated into your database, you want to process this data. It is in terms of terabytes. Then you have to use tools like you have Hadoop, or you have this big data analytics. You apply machine learning algorithms on this, and then draw some conclusions based on this. Take some decisions, predict something. Okay, finally this data can be used for that. Okay, remember, this data is not, it is useful, of course, it is definitely not useless. Okay, so now you have understood more or less a little bit about all these blocks. We have implemented the last part. This is the user interface that we have developed, and then you will ask me, okay, fine, then how do we develop this user interfaces? I told you that this user interface can be developed using web pages, using HTML and PHP technologies, or you can develop an Android application for displaying this. Finally, your user application is the interface on which the user will be able to visualize the data, or they will be able to even remotely control something. That is the next example which I'm going to explain to you. Okay, we go back to the presentation. So I have the software backend here in which I have MySQL, in which we have created the table PHP to receive the data and put it into the database. Yeah, this is the end of part 2. Yesterday we have even seen this output. We connected the sensor node to the cloud server, and then it was dumping data, and then we were able to see the output. Okay, now there are some hands that are raised. Let me see if there are 3 people who are actually raising their hands. Pradeep Kulkarni, Shobha. If there is anything you want to ask, please, you can unmute yourself and ask me, or you can actually put your question into the chat box. Okay, now one question that is being asked here is, they're asking, is it necessary that you have to purchase cloud storage essential for storing NodeMCU readings? Okay, now this is a good question. Now, here they're asking a question like, is it necessary that you have to purchase this space? See, finally, when you want to develop your own architecture for IoT, your own architecture for IoT, it is important that you have to purchase space. There are so many servers on which you even get free space. There are free servers also available. They provide you space to store your data. They provide you MySQL access. They provide you PHP running on their server. They allow everything, okay? And it is free of cost also. There were so many I had heard about long back, but I don't know whether they are still free or they have started charging, okay? Otherwise, there are free available through Android. There is something called Firebase. I don't know whether you've heard about it. There is a concept called as Firebase. Firebase is a Android technology. Through Android, basically, it's a Google technology. Basically, people use that to store their data on the Firebase. It's a database in which you can store whatever details you want. You can create your own tables there and all that. So there are platforms available which are free of cost. You don't have to purchase. It's not required. Okay, it is not important. It is not maybe 100% required. But if you want to develop your own custom IoT framework, then you have to go for commercial servers, because they are reliable. They are definitely reliable. They give you space. They give you proper support and service whenever it is required. This free servers has got a lot of added advertisements with them, and they have limitations on that. There are a lot of things. So I hope I have answered that question. There are few available for free, but if you want to have flexibility in your IoT architecture, then it is better to buy one. Yeah, now the question is that they're asking which are the free servers. I told you that Firebase is one of them. Firebase is one of them. And Firebase is one of them. And I'm just trying to read some questions which are there. Okay, can we use any other language other than PHP? Of course, you can use other programming languages. PHP we use because it is open source and it is easy to understand. There are other server-side scripting languages. You have Python. You can use Python Django framework to do that. You have PHP. You have ASP. Then you have Perl. You have Ruby. There are so many programming languages which you can use on the server side. But since PHP is something which is easy to understand, syntax is also simple. You just need to write your PHP and deploy it on the cloud server. It starts executing. Syntax is simple. So I thought that PHP would be better, but of course, there are other languages also you can definitely use. Absolutely no problems with that. Now, one more question is, in the cloud, we have limited storage. If you want more storage, then what can we do? Now, the place, I will give you my example. The place where I have purchased my space, it's a company which is located here in my own city. Okay, so I request them. They initially told me that 500 MB will be given to you, but sometimes the data gets so much big. I sometimes request them, please allow me to use another 100 MB like that. So on request, these people will increase it. It will be in their hands. If you request, they will charge you very, very nominally, and then they will give you extra space also. Up to 1 GB also you can buy. It is very affordable. And then there is one more thing being asked here. They're requesting me to share all the codes. Of course, I will share all the code. I will share all the material with you, the PPTs, the code, the design diagrams, and all that. I will definitely share it with you people. In the cloud, if you want to go for free servers, of course, they will have a limitation. When you want to go for free servers like Firebase and all, of course, there is limitations. You cannot keep data as much as you want. They will allow you to store only a limited amount of data. Beyond that, if you want to go, then you will have to purchase space on the cloud. AWS is always there. One more question is, can we use other IDEs to develop the code? Can we use other IDEs to develop the code? Now, which are the IDEs that we have used to write our Node MCU code? We used Arduino IDE. We used Arduino IDE to type our Arduino code, Node MCU code. Why do we have to use that only? Because there is an option in that IDE to convert that to hex and to upload it to the Node. You cannot use any other IDE for writing Arduino code. You have to use that IDE only. To type the program, fine, you can use anything. You can even use Notepad. Only to type the program. To type the program, you can use any IDE, absolutely fine. But if you want to convert that to hex and to upload it to the Node MCU, you have to use Arduino IDE only. And the other IDE that we had used was Sublime for typing PHP. PHP can be typed in any IDE, because finally, once you have typed the PHP code, you have to put that PHP code into that file of PHP, you have to put it into the cloud server. So here it doesn't matter in your machine which IDE you are using to type your PHP code. You can use Notepad, you can use Sublime, you can use Notepad++, Xcode. There's so many, you can use anything. Another question here. I want to get DHT11 sensor data on HTML page using ESP8266. How is it possible? Help me for the same. Okay. Now, this is exactly what we had done in the last 2 days. Yesterday's practical session and today's practical session, exactly this is what we have done. We have got the DHT11 sensor data on the HTML page. Okay. Right now, I have the unit in front of me. I have even shared with you the circuit of how it has to be connected to the Node MCU. Node MCU is nothing but the ESP8266. So we connected it to pin number D1, and then we have written the code. For that, I told you that there has to be a communication thing where you start a hotspot in your mobile phone. You make the Node MCU connect to the hotspot. And then from there, your Node MCU will get internet connectivity, and then dumping the data into the cloud server. Okay, and then to see that data on the cloud server on HTML, we have to write the user interface application. User interface application. He says that, sir, please provide code and steps for that. Yeah, okay, I'll try to give you the steps how to do it. Code, of course, I will share with you people. Definitely, I'll share it with you people. I'll give you the PHP files. I'll give you all the HTML pages and everything. Can we replace the Node MCU with Raspberry Pi device? Yeah, we are coming to that, Swati. We are coming back to that. We will, in the last session, the fourth part, which is going to be only for 15 minutes, not more than that, we are going to discuss how you can replace the Node MCU or any microcontroller for that matter with the Raspberry Pi. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Gajendra says that because today I'm facing connectivity problem, he's saying that please share the code with me. Definitely, sir, I'll share the code with you, so you don't worry about that. Okay, so I think we have finished this is the end of the second module. I will go to the third module now immediately, and this is going to be a demonstration session where I want you people to participate from wherever you are present. Wherever you're present, you have to participate. It's going to be little interesting. Let us see how well it goes. So I will open my other, this is part 2. And final day 2, part 3, yeah. And these PPTs are very small, okay? It contains only some 6 to 7 slides, that's it. Part 3 is 6, 7 slides and all that. Okay. So let us go with this now. This is part 3 of IoT. Let me very quickly see what is there in this. It contains we are going to see how to control. What we saw before this is a sensor node, which was detecting temperature, humidity from the sensor, and it was dumping it into the database. So it was a sensor node, nothing much of controlling. Okay, I was not doing anything like, in my Android or in the web page, I click on a button and here something was getting switched on. I did not do anything, something like that. What I did was my node MCU was determining the temperature and humidity, and it was putting it into the cloud server. Now, what we will be attempting to do is we will be controlling an LED. We will be controlling an LED through an HTML page. Okay, so that is what we will be doing. And then finally, I'll just give you the summary, the entire summary of the implementation. What all we have done in the implementation, a summary of that. So only 2 things we'll be covering in this. First thing, yeah, again, another circuit. So for this, what we need to do is we have to do the connections like this. I don't need anything much. So there is no DHT label here. There is going to be a simple LED. I'm going to connect that LED to pin number D1, and the negative leg of the LED goes into the ground. Then there is a power supply required for the node MCU. The power supply is required for the node MCU. So I have a 5-volt power supply. Now this power supply can come to the node MCU either through a wall adapter, or it can come through a power bank. Somehow you have to supply it plus 5 volt. Okay, you can directly put that power supply into the socket here, or you can connect it to the V-in pin over here. Normally I use this socket. I use a power bank, and then I directly connect the power supply to this point here. And there is only one LED, nothing more. And then, yeah, in this diagram, I've shown it very clearly that this unit here, okay, from here to here, this unit is in my hardware. And this is my mobile phone Android, in which I have created a hotspot called as MMDC. You can see MMDC, and the password is 123456788. And then this mobile of mine is connected to the internet, so data goes to the cloud server. Okay, and the communication between the node MCU unit and my mobile phone is across Wi-Fi. So this is wireless communication, of course, and it is Wi-Fi interface. Okay, so this is the simple circuit diagram for that. Let us go further and let us try to control this now. Okay, first I will show you the hardware. Okay. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so what I have here, if you can see it in my video, this is the Node MCU that I'm holding here. And I'm going to do the connections properly now. This is the Node MCU. I told you that we are going to connect the LED to pin number D1. So I have even the LED over here. I'm going to connect the positive leg of the LED to pin number D1 and the negative leg of the LED to the ground pin. I've done that. I don't know if, yeah. Now that we've done the connections, I'll just explain to you people what code I've written for the Node MCU, what code I've written so that, and I have already dumped the code into this Node MCU. We have already dumped the code into this Node MCU. Now what I will do is I will start in my mobile phone. In my mobile phone here, I will start the hotspot. So I start the hotspot and I have set the name of my hotspot as MMDC and the password as 1234567. And now this Node MCU, I've written the code. I'll power up the Node MCU. I will use a power bank. Okay, you can use a power bank like this. Okay. So now this is the entire setup. I don't know whether I'm able to capture this in the entire frame or no. That's it, nothing more than that. Only two cables, which goes to the Node MCU, and that is of the LED. And then I will be using the power bank to power up the Node MCU. Now let me see in my mobile phone if one device has been connected. Yeah, it says one device is connected, which means that in my mobile phone the Node MCU is connected. Now it is ready to take instructions. Okay. First, I will demonstrate this to you people, and then after that, I will explain to you the code that I've written for this entire experiment. Okay. So what I need to do is I need to open a browser in which I need to put control.html. Okay, so if you are able to see my screen, now there are two things that I'm sharing, my video also and my screen also. In my screen, I have requested for a page, okay, which is called as FTP demo to start all that. And then when I click on this button here on, when I click the button in my browser here, when I click on this button, toggle button, you can see that the LED here gets switched on. And then when I click it, it is off. Now for this, you should actually keep both the things open. I don't know whether you're able to see this or no, but on my browser, I have opened a page where there is a toggle button. When I click on that button, it switches on the bulb. And when I click on the button once again, it switches off. So I click on this button once again, you can see that the LED is on. And when I click it, you can see it is off. Now I want you people, I will copy this URL and put it into the chat. I want somebody from wherever you are sitting, to control this. Okay, and now it is off right now. It is off right now. I paste it and then I send it to everyone. Yeah, that is the URL which I've sent in the chat. Now you can open that URL in a browser. It will open a page in which there is a small toggle button. Click on that. Yeah, somebody has controlled it from somewhere. So you can see that it is on. Somebody, I don't know who is doing it. And then somebody has switched it off. Okay, so now I can actually see somebody from somewhere in our country setting and then controlling this LED. So I can see that the LED is going on and off. People are controlling this from, it's so nice to see that. Okay, so okay, now the LED is continuously on. So I think you people have got the hang of it. Now I'll tell you the code that we have written for this. This is a simple code, not very complicated. It is on the same principle as the previous one. There is definitely a code we have written in the Node MCU, and there is code that we have written in the software backend. We have written a PHP code. There is a database, of course, for this. There is a table for this. So we'll try to see exactly what is that code. So I will stop the video now, and then let us go back to the slides. Okay, so we have seen the controlling of LED with the web interface. The web interface contained a toggle switch using which you were able to control the LED. I had kept the Node MCU on. It first got connected to the gateway here, which is nothing but my mobile phone, in which I've started a hotspot. And then from there, it was communicating across the cloud. And then it was changing the status of my database table, okay, to on and off. Let us see the entire coding that is behind this. Let us go further. Okay, first of all, what was there in my software backend? In the software backend, of course, there is a MySQL table and there is PHP code. Okay, so let us see what code we have written in PHP first. The PHP code contained only this much. First of all, I made connection to the database. The first line here actually makes connection to the database. Second thing is that I opened the connection to the database. Then there was a query that I ran. The query was select star from TBL IoT. Okay, select star from TBL IoT. There is a table on the cloud server which we have made here. Yeah, I'll just go to and show you what is there in that PHP MyAdmin. I will show you here that there is a table called as TBL IoT. So many tables are there, in which there is one table called as TBL IoT. And then you can see that the table contains only one column and it contains only one cell called as status, STS. One column and one cell called as STS. And right now the status is 0. Okay, 0 means switch off the light, switch off the LED, and 1 there means switch the LED on. Okay, so there is a table. There in the table there is only one column called as STS. So I say select star from TBL IoT and see what PHP is doing first. Then we will see what Node MCU code we have written. So this PHP actually opens the connection to the database. Then after that, it will select everything from the table. It will select whether it is a 0 or 1. It will fetch it from the database and then it will print that data to the Node MCU. What is data? $data is nothing but $data is actually nothing but what is the status right now, whether it is 0 or 1. PHP is fetching that information and it is sending it back to the client. And who is the client? The client is the Node MCU. That's it. This PHP is only doing that. Making connection to the database, selecting the current status 0 or 1, and then sending it back to the Node MCU. Okay, fine. Now, let us go further and let us see what code we have written for the Node MCU. This is the code that we have written for the Node MCU. Okay, that's it, only this much code. First of all, I know I've already told you that these are the libraries that you have to include into your code. Then after that, the Node MCU has to get connected to your SSID, provided proper SSID and password. Then after that, in the setup function here, In the setup function here, you know what to do. First of all, you know that you have connected your LED to pin number 1, D1, so you have to make the pin mode as output. I told you this yesterday. If you are using a pin to read something from the sensor, you use that pin as an input pin. And if you want to control that pin to put a high volt and a low volt, yesterday we saw this, to put a plus 5 volt on the pin or to put a 0 volt on the pin, you make it as an output pin. So you have to define D1 as an output pin because you are connecting the LED there. Then finally, you know what we are doing with this Wi-Fi.begin SSID and password, and then there is an infinite loop till it gets connected. So till it gets connected, this loop will be continuously executing. I can actually see the LED now, you know, blinking. I can see it going on and off, on and off. I've switched off the video actually, but then people are, you know, actually using that web interface to switch it on and switch it off. Fine, I'll come back to the code. So it is actually, you know, takes a while loop and then gets connected to the hotspot. Once it does that, then it goes into the loop. It goes into the loop. And see what we are doing into the loop. What we are doing into the loop is we are requesting a URL, and the URL is getStatus.php. What is this getStatus? The getStatus PHP is this one, the PHP file. What is this PHP file doing? I have explained to you this already. It is making connection to the database, opening TVL IoT, determining what is the status right now, 0 or 1. And then the PHP is sending it back, and the Node MCU will request this file called as getStatus. The moment any client requests this file getStatus, the client will receive what should be the current status of the light which is there in the database. So this is where we will be using payload. PHP file is sending you back 0 or 1. That comes into payload, and now you take a decision. If payload contains 1, if payload, the details that is coming back from the server, PHP is sending you with that payload, if it contains 1, you know that the LED has to be switched on. And how do we switch on the LED? We simply do digital write D1, high. We put a high signal on pin number D1, which will make the LED to glow. It will switch on the LED. If payload does not contain a 0, if it does not contain a 1, then it means that it contains a 0. In that case, you have to put a low signal on pin number D1. Okay, then you'll be wondering why this index of and all that. In RDM, actually, if you want to compare strings, you know, there are a lot of ways. You can directly compare it using a double quotes and all that. Since, you know, this payload which comes along with a lot of spaces and all that, I thought that this would be the right method to check whether the data that is coming from the PHP is 1 or 0. So payload, if it contains 1, switch on the LED by putting a high signal on D1. If payload contains 0, put a low signal on the pin number D1 to which LED is connected, it will be off. Ending connection, delay of 500 milliseconds. 500 milliseconds. Because I want this to continuously execute. The Node MCU has to continuously go to the server, bring the status back. Go to the server, bring the status back. It has to continuously keep checking what is the status. It has to continuously keep polling the database to see what is the current status. So it goes there, brings the current status, and updates it here. Now somebody switches it, if they switch it on, the status will be made as 1 there, Node MCU will bring it here, and it will make the D1 as high. If somebody makes it low, then the database is updated with 0, and then the Node MCU goes there, gets the data back from there, it receives a 0, and then it will switch it off. So this, it has to do very, very frequently and continuously as long as it is on. So with a delay of 500 milliseconds, the Node MCU is going to the server and getting the current status and accordingly updating the pin. So in the Node MCU, nothing much, few steps. First we connect to the Wi-Fi. Then in the loop function, continuously keep polling the database, check the status. If it is 1, put a high signal. If it is 0, put a low signal. Only 2 lines of code, only 2 files. One is the Node MCU code, and the other one is the PHP code. Let me go back to the slides. So we have seen how to control the LED with the web interface. This was the connections we had done. We had connected the LED to pin number D1, the other part to ground. The Node MCU had Wi-Fi in it. It got connected to my mobile phone here, and then it goes to the cloud. And then the node MCU is continuously, after every 500 milliseconds, it is requesting a URL. And whatever the PHP is sending it back, accordingly it is updating the pin. This is the logic of the program. Okay. Software backend, you know, we have a database. There is a table called as TBL IoT. In that, there is a column called as STS. PHP code also I've explained it. Now, a summary of the entire implementation. Okay, we are on the verge of completing this. Another one more part 4 is there. I told you it is not going to take much time, some 10 minutes only. In a complete implementation, I'm just going to summarize this. This is going to be an important slide. Then later on, you know, I will be taking up questions. So first, I told you that IoT contains 4 building blocks. It contains an hardware, it contains communication, it contains a software backend, and then finally it contains an application. Hardware we have already seen. Hardware is your node MCU, connected with sensors like DH11, the LDR. And then for the next example, there was an LED connector. So this contributes to your hardware block of your IoT. Next comes communication. Now, the communication model that we had used here was device to gateway communication model, because my device, node MCU, was getting connected to my mobile phone, which was acting as a gateway, and then providing my node MCU the internet connectivity. And the communication from the device to the mobile phone was Wi-Fi. So that is the second block of your IoT. Third block of your IoT was a software backend. For the 2 examples, we wrote 2 different PHP files, and there was a MySQL in which we had created the table. So the software backend block of my IoT contains PHP code and a table in the database. And finally, the application part. The application part, the last block of IoT architecture, the last block of the building blocks of IoT is a user interface, which we can create a simple web page, or we can create it using an Android app, or you can write a Python program which runs on the command prompt. We can basically write the application in any way possible, whichever is convenient, whichever is required. GUI only, so it has to be an HTML or it has to be an Android application. Okay, so this is the last block of the IoT architecture. Yeah, now if there are any questions, you please ask me. And then somebody was asking a question, is it okay if we can unmute ourselves and then ask a question? I think that's
Hello.
fine. Yes, sir. Please ask.
Hello. Sir, this is Gajendra Singh Mori.
Yes, sir.
From Mandvi, Surat, Gujarat.
Very good.
Sir, actually, I want to get data, DHT11 sensors data on my web page using ESP8266. Okay.
So,
hello,
Gajendra sir, first of all, a very good afternoon. And then,
yes,
I am being telling about this part only in the last 2 days. Actually, what you need is exactly what we have done in the last 2 days. Okay, I have shared with you the circuit diagram also. In case if you have any specific requirement as such, if there is any specific requirement as such, or if you are facing problems, if you have already done this and if you're facing problems, then I can, personally get in touch with you. You can please ask me what difficulties you're facing, and then I can solve this problem.
Okay, now, sir, but can you share your contact number, email address to us, sir?
Yeah. In the last slide, I will put up my mobile number and my mail ID also, sir, so that you can please note it down, and then you can contact me. Absolutely fine, no problem at all.
Okay, sir.
Because yesterday also there was one question asked, like for a specific project, there was a specific error. Now, see, there are so many things. There is a front end, there is the hardware, there is the communication and all that. Now, there are possibilities that the error can be anywhere. Okay, if somebody has not done the connections properly, if you have not connected the pin to a particular pin on the sensor or something like that, then the error lies there. If there is a problem in the communication, then the problem may be over there. Okay, or if there is an user interface application problem, then something. So there are many places in the entire project where the error can lie. So to pinpoint that error, it becomes a little difficult, but definitely, sir, madam, if it is required, then I have to remotely access your computer and help you out. I'll definitely do that. Don't worry about that. Yeah, I don't see any questions here. So this is the end of part 3. Another 10-15 minutes. We will do the part 4, and we will be open for taking up the final questions. Then after that.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir, again Gajendra Simori.
Yes, sir. Tell me.
Sir, actually, I don't want to store data in database. I want to direct get data on the web page. It may be a HTML or PHP, but I want to get data on a HTML directly, and I want to apply a semantic on it. Means by using a ontology. So is it possible directly,
Yes,
or we
yes,
need to
yes.
code more and more?
No. It is possible. You don't always require. Now, in that case, the architecture changes a little bit. You don't need the database. You don't want your sensor node to put data into the database. You want to directly pick up from there. Okay.
Yes, sir.
You want to directly fetch it from there. Now, all this time, the Node MCU was working like a client. Okay. It was working like a client. And for the two examples that I have shown in yesterday's session and today's session, the Node MCU was a client. It was requesting a URL.
Yes, sir. I actually yesterday I'm busy in a college work, so that's why I left your session.
Okay, fine, no problem. Even today's example, if you have followed, the Node MCU is requesting a URL, which means that the Node MCU was a client. But
yes,
we can also configure the Node MCU to be a web server. Please remember that the Node MCU can be configured to be a web server, which means some other client from outside, my own browser here, can request some data from the Node MCU. Now, if you want to connect a DHT11 to the Node MCU, and if you want temperature and humidity to come to you on demand, you have to configure the Node MCU as a web server, and then then the Node MCU will provide you a URL with an IP address, which you have to put it into your browser, into your semantic, whatever application you are using, and then it will keep, whenever you want the temperature and humidity, it simply goes, it puts a request to the Node MCU, and then it brings the temperature and humidity. You don't have to store it in between anywhere. On demand, you can receive it, absolutely fine. But you have to configure the Node MCU as a web server for that.
Okay, sir. Actually, I request you to share the PPT code and recording and other stuff to the committee
that I think the organizing committee has already shared with you. The content of my entire presentation of the 2 days, I'll share it with you, the entire code, the circuit diagrams, my PPTs, and everything. I'll share it with you people. And then apart from this, if there is any other difficulty you are facing for any other project or something like that, please let me know. Absolutely fine. I will share my mail ID and the password. Okay.
Thanks for your support, sir.
Yes, sir, no problem. And it is nice to know people are joining from different parts of India.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, anybody?
Sir, your contact number, your contact number or email address.
Okay, are you able to see my screen?
No, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, my name is Naveed and the contact number is 9740813080. You can just take a snapshot of that.
Yes, sir. I got it. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay. Now, coming back to the last part of the session, is there any other questions coming up? No, I don't see any questions here. So I'll go back to the presentation. Last part, I told you only 15 minutes, I need 10 minutes. I'm going to introduce you to what is the meaning of a single board computer. You will understand the difference between a microcontroller and a single board computer. Okay, only for information. There is not going to be any demonstrations on this, but you will understand the actual difference between a microcontroller and a single board computer. Okay. So, this is the last part. Okay. First of all, the contents in this I'm going to share with you people. First is what is the meaning of of a microcontroller. One thing that a microcontroller does not have and a single board computer has is an operating system. A single board computer has operating system. You can install operating systems like Linux, Windows. And since you can install Windows, Linux, it becomes multitasking. I told you initially that a microcontroller is single tasking. You can write only one program on the microcontroller at any given time. But on a single board computer like a Raspberry Pi, you can install any type of a software. You can run multiple programs simultaneously. On the single board computer, I can install any high-end softwares. It can perform high-end computing. And then the best part, the most important part is that now this is where I will compare the microcontroller with the Raspberry Pi or the single board computer. I'll just give an example. For example, let us say I want to develop a security system where I want to connect a camera to my microcontroller. And then I want to connect a DC motor to the microcontroller. I want to develop a little more smart security system, a more smart IoT or an embedded system, where I want the system to take a photo of the person who's standing right in front of the door. If the person standing in front of the door is a known person, the door should automatically open. If the person standing in front of the door is an unknown person, the door of course should not open, and it should actually in turn send an alert message to the owner of the house. Something like that I want to achieve using my embedded system. A microcontroller is capable of turning the DC motor which will open the door and close. It can do that. But my next question is it capable of identifying people? A microcontroller of course cannot do it. It is not capable of performing that task. Because for identifying the person, the device should have image processing capabilities that a normal microcontroller will not have. Then in that case, I employ its big brother for this task. I take the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi is a computer in which you can install any software. Normally for image processing, we take help of MATLAB or we take help of OpenCV, or Python has got so many image processing libraries. We employ these programming languages. I cannot use MATLAB on microcontrollers. I cannot use OpenCV on microcontrollers. But I can put all this into the Raspberry Pi because it is a full-fledged computer. It has got everything that a normal computer contains. It has got hard disk, it has got RAM, it has got a fast processor, it has got ports to which you can connect your cameras, and finally it has also got GPIO pins. GPIO pins are those pins to which you can connect your sensors and actuators. I have told you that. Now this facility of GPIO was not there into our traditional computers. If I have a laptop, in my laptop, if I have a laptop of Dell or any other company for that matter, these laptops of mine doesn't have GPIO pins. I cannot directly interface my sensors with my laptop. It's not possible. Okay, but it is powerful. My laptop is powerful. It can do image processing. I can install MATLAB on this. I can install OpenCV on this. Microcontroller, on the other hand, does not have the capability of processing. It doesn't have the potential of doing image processing. But it has got GPIO pins, using which I can interface my sensors and actuators. The Raspberry Pi has the best of both the worlds. It is powerful, and it has also got the GPIO pins. Its power can do image processing. GPIO pins can interface sensors and actuators to open and close the door. So I hope this is clear now. A single board computer, it's a small device. In the next slide, I think I already have that. Yeah. Now the different types of single board computers that we have in the market. Different types. Raspberry Pi is not the only single board computer. There are so many. There is Raspberry Pi, then there is Beagle boards, we have Panda boards, we have Rock Pi 4, we have Nano PC, we have Odroid, Asus, Tinkerboard, and there are many more actually. This is only to name a few. But the one which is very commonly and very popularly used is the Raspberry Pi. And this is one of my favorites. There is one application that we are developing using the Raspberry Pi. I don't know if it is successful, then it can create a revolution, something like that. It's all because of the potential of the Raspberry Pi. So this is how the Raspberry Pi looks like. It has got everything that a normal computer contains. It has got HDMI to which you can connect to a display. It has got a LAN cable to which you can connect it to the LAN. Then it has got USB to which you can connect to cameras or any USB device. Then, of course, the most important part is this part. The most important part is this part here, the GPIO pins, to which you can connect your sensors and actuators. So I can connect a camera to the USB. I can connect a camera to the USB. And then I can write a program into the Raspberry Pi that take a photo of the person standing right in front of the door, and then match that face with the face which is there in the database. And in the database, I plan to keep the photos of all the family members or the owners of the house. So the Raspberry Pi will take a photo using this camera, compare the image with the database images, face recognition, and if the face matches, then give a signal to the GPIO pin to open it, to rotate a DC motor, and the DC motor in turn will open the page. Now how nice. So this is what we can achieve through a Raspberry Pi. And then these are the pin diagrams of the Raspberry Pi. There are so many GPIO pins available here. Okay, there are, I think, altogether 26 GPIO pins available. There are 40 pins, of course, but not all of them are GPIOs. Some of them are dedicated 5 volts, ground and all that. So leaving all this, I have 26 GPIO pins, which means that I can connect 26 sensors or actuators to the Raspberry Pi. And the programming language that we use to program the Raspberry Pi is Python. Python is a very diversified, it's a very versatile programming language. You can do machine learning, you can do image processing, you can do embedded, you can even control the GPIO pins. In fact, I wanted to demonstrate a small program on the Raspberry Pi, but the time did not limit. There are so many things that we have to go into. Maybe in the future sometime, if it is possible, we can do that. So you have now understood what is the meaning of a single board computer. Raspberry Pi is one of the examples. Now let us compare the Raspberry Pi with the microcontroller. I think I'm at the last part of the presentation. When I compare the Raspberry Pi with the microcontroller, first point of comparison is potential. Potential is the capacity. Raspberry Pi is capable of doing a lot of things. It is capable of doing a lot of things in a much better way, very, very efficiently. It is extremely powerful compared to a microcontroller. Microcontrollers, as I have already mentioned to you, is a small device which is not capable of doing a lot of things. But for small applications, remember, microcontrollers has to be used because the Raspberry Pi there will be too expensive or it is too good for the job. So it is up to us to decide what you want to use for a particular application. If my application desires that I need to only switch on and switch off something, then it is always better to go for a simple microcontroller. Because Raspberry Pi is capable of doing a lot of things. So potential-wise, Raspberry Pi is extremely potential compared to a microcontroller. It can do a lot of things. Second comparison is based on operating system. Single board computers like the Raspberry Pi has got operating systems. You have to install an OS onto the hard disk. And hard disk comes in the form of a small SD card. And the operating system that we install on the Raspberry Pi is specifically made for the Raspberry Pi. There is one which is called as a Raspbian. It's developed by Raspberry Pi organization. The people who have developed the Raspberry Pi, they have developed this operating system. And then after that, big players like Windows, Microsoft has come up with a Windows version which can be installed on the Raspberry Pi. Microsoft has actually come out with a Windows version called as Windows IoT, I think, or something like that. They have come up with an operating system which you can install it onto the Raspberry Pi. Okay, so, and of course, you cannot install operating systems onto a microcontroller. Third is applications. Now, applications, what I mean by applications is that please remember that you have to be intelligent enough to understand what to employ for what application. You have to take proper decisions here. Like I have already told you that if it is a simple application to switch on and switch off something, it is always good to go for a microcontroller. But if you require a lot of potential to image processing, machine learning, all that, then of course you have to go for a Raspberry Pi. And then when it comes to cost, of course, Raspberry Pi is expensive compared to a microcontroller. Microcontrollers, I told you that you will even get it for 45 rupees, 50 rupees, 60 rupees. Some of the peak microcontrollers are cheaper than Atmega, are a little expensive, 120 rupees, 125 rupees, you get microcontrollers. But when you want to buy the cheapest single board computer, I think it is for 1800 rupees. That is called as the Pi Zero. Raspberry Pi Zero is a very small, but it has got the complete potential of Raspberry Pi. But it is a little smaller in size. It doesn't have too many USB ports into it, a lot of limitations. But it is a single board. It is still a single board computer, and the cost of that is something like 1500 to 1800 rupees. Okay, but if you want to go for prototyping, then you go for a higher version of Raspberry Pi, which will cost you something like 2,900 rupees, 3,000, 3,500 rupees. Okay, it costs that much. So of course, Raspberry Pi is expensive. So use it only when it is required. And finally, the programming languages. Programming languages that we use on a microcontroller is embedded C. But the programming languages that we use on the Raspberry Pi is of course Python. You can run your C programs, you can run your Java programs. It is capable of running any programming language. It is up to you. It is up to your choice, the developer's choice. I'm comfortable with Python. I use Python. It's very versatile, and I recommend everybody to use Python because it is very, very versatile. You can do image processing, machine learning, embedded controlling GPIO pins, and it is very, very easy also, Python, compared to other programming languages. Finally, the conclusion. What we have done in the course of last 2 days. We have understood what is IoT, more or less. What are the applications of IoT, where it can be used? We have understood the building blocks of IoT. Very important. There are 4 I told you. Please remember this. Don't forget this. Hardware, communication, software backend, and the application or the user interface. Then we understood the simple IoT architecture. We understood what is the meaning of a sensor and what is the meaning of an actuator. We understood what is a microcontroller and what is an Arduino. We took a little session on what is Node MCU. We implemented 2 things in Node MCU. We implemented sensor node and we controlled an LED using the Node MCU. Then we understood what is PHP software backend, more or less. Then we understood what is a single board computer, what is a Raspberry Pi, and finally we understood what is the difference between a microcontroller and a Raspberry Pi. So with that, I think, yeah, this is end of part 4, and thank you all.
Participants, can you all hear me? Yeah, if you all have any questions,
yes,
please raise your questions.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, tell me.
Ma'am, actually, I have one question.
Yeah, you can talk to Navid sir directly. He is online.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, tell me.
I'm audible, sir?
Yeah, you are audible. Loud.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. My question is, at my farmhouse, okay, there is a motor.
Okay.
There is a motor for water, and I want to on a motor from my home.
Okay.
So how it possible? And can you explain the exact flow of this procedure? What types of hardware I need to install? What types of software or technology I need to install, and so on?
Yes.
It means at my home, I want to on my motor and off my motor.
Yeah, I understood the question, sir. Now, see, again, it's a very specific requirement, but I will very quickly, I will try my best to answer that question. First of all, we had done a similar project last time. There are different ways of doing it. For this, you don't have to use a Raspberry Pi, of course. You have to go for a very simple microcontroller, and then there has to be some communication medium. If you are keeping this device in your farm and you are in your house, of course, your house is not very close by. Okay. If it is within the same house you want to control, then you can use Wi-Fi as the interface to control the motor. If you are staying very far away, if there is a distance of something like 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers, then you have to use GSM modem. You have to use something called
GSM modem.
Yeah, GSM modem you have to use, which you have to connect it to the microcontroller.
Then where I need to place GSM modem?
Yeah, your entire hardware unit will contain a microcontroller. You can use an Arduino for that. A GSM modem. You need a relay to switch on and switch off your motor, because your relay is not going to, your motor is not going to run on 5 volts. It will require 230 volts. If it is a 3-phase motor, then you require 440 volts for that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So you require something called as a relay. These are the hardware components that you will be needing for the project. And then finally, you want to control it from your house. Now you need some interface here. Now you need either an Android application, a button in the Android application. When you click on that button, the motor should switch on there. When you click on the button, it should get switched off there. So you need some interface. So you have to develop that Android application also. Okay, you can develop that application either as a web page, or you can develop it as an Android application.
Okay.
So
approximately
the procedure.
cost of this project is approximately.
See, I'll tell you, a microcontroller, something like 200 to 300, something like this. I need to sit into the GSM modem so that we can communicate with it from wherever you are. So the entire thing is not going to cost more than 1,500.
Okay, I got it. Yes, sir, I got it.
Okay, thank you for
so
the
much, sir.
thank you for the question, gentlemen. Any other participants have a question?
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yeah, you are quite audible, lady. Please
Please
post your
share
question
whatever
directly.
the PPTs of today's and yesterday's, ma'am.
Yeah, it'll be shared. It'll be
Okay,
shared into the WhatsApp group. And we are live. We were live yesterday on YouTube. You can see us on YouTube as well. Anybody
Okay,
else
thank you.
with the questions, please? Okay. Considering that there are no more questions, on behalf of the Keli Society Management College, I would like to thank Navid sir for his wonderful session, 2-day session. In fact, it was indeed wonderful. And I guess during his session, he has answered all the queries that were posted by the participants. And I also felt that there were many research questions that were projected. Anybody who is really interested in IoT can take up these questions for their research. Okay, thank you so much. You all were wonderful participants. We'll be meeting tomorrow again with a new session again by Akash, but the title is going to be